All right, you guys ready to get started?
My website.
All right, we want to give Rob all the time he can get because you might have a lot of questions for him. So, welcome to Basecamp this week. We do have Jim with Inspiro. He's going to take a few minutes to talk about some Inspiro stuff. Jim?
Cool, thank you. I'll just take a quick minute. First of all, though, anyone need a new journal? Gotta ask. No? Seriously? That's kind of sad.
I'll take it.
All right.
Don't make it take it back downstairs.
I have one left.
Look at that.
I'm sorry.
This back is easy.
I know where you're
Tell me
going.
again, what do you want? How about a pen? Okay. I got a pen for you. There you go. So, just wanted to share a quick thought. Interest rates are low. You guys know that. Everyone knows rates are low. There's a lot of good loan programs and products out there. So I thought, okay, what message could I quickly share today? And this is sitting on my desk. You guys all know Dr. Seuss. Rob saw this. I was carrying it over there. He's like, what do you have a Dr. Seuss book for? And I said, well, I'm going to share a quick message on green eggs and ham. So, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, a business coach that I know, we were talking and we had a long discussion about work and about how to be more successful and how to, get organized, and we had a great discussion. And then all of a sudden, this showed up in the mail at my home, and that's kind of strange. That's kind of funny. But she wrote this card. And I want to just read the card, and that's my message today, because what she says is really cool. So think about that: green eggs and ham. And now we're going to tie in some type of message, right, about sales. You guys are in sales. You're talking to your SOI. You're calling expireds and just listeds and all that, and just everyone you can. And sometimes it's hard, right? And sometimes you don't want to make those calls. Sometimes you don't want to go door knocking. Sometimes you don't want to do it. I'm the same way. So this is her message, and it kind of resonated with me. And so now I'm reading this quite a bit, actually. It says. She goes, Jim, this is the best sales book ever written. And when I first got that card, I'm like, no, it's not. But she says, Jim, this is the best sales book ever written. Sam is so persistent. He asks 30 times and receives. Do you guys know how many no's he receives? It'd be really impressive if you did.
29?
75. 75 no's. Sam asks for what he wants, and he keeps asking. And he does it with enthusiasm and with a smile, and with service in mind. At the end of the book, you guys know the story. At the end, Sam is thanked 3 times for his green eggs and ham. This is the impact we had in sales with others. And then she just says, the last thing is she says, it's hard to be nervous. It's hard to be nervous to make that call or go door knock or talk to that person that you don't want to, right? She goes, it's hard to be nervous when your heart is set on service. People know that, they sense it, they feel it, and when you got that service mentality, they'll listen to you. Maybe not all the time, but if you bring that energy, good things usually will. So anyways, Green Eggs and Ham is the best sales book ever written. Don't ever forget it. So,
Love it.
anyways, that's the message, guys. I appreciate letting us have a message.
Awesome.
Thanks, Rob.
Move over, Augmentito.
Awesome, thanks. Yes. They did.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, everybody start reading that book. Okay, we got Rob today. Rob's been here for a really long time, since the very beginning.
One or 2 days.
You know, when you first get here, you're afraid when he comes and knocks on your door. As you get to know him a little bit better, then it's a lot easier. He used to come down to my office and knock on the door, and as soon as he did, my heart would race. Like, oh, what crap? What did I do?
I do
But now he comes and visits every once in a while.
Well, now I have to make sure that I'll really scare you. Okay. Glad everybody could be here. We're going to just turn the light off because it'll be a little bit easier to see what we're going to be talking about. I do have a couple of things that are on my agenda, and depending on how much time we have, I would certainly like to leave some time for any questions or answers. But there are a couple things that are coming up often and I don't care how long you've been in the business, everybody is screwing this stuff up. So hopefully we can fix some of these things, and I promise you, you will also walk out of here with information that you did not know before you came in. So it will not be a waste of time, anything that's out there. So, real quick, does anyone know, we've been talking about it a lot, something's happening on February 1st. Anyone? Okay. A little giveaway. What is this clear cooperation policy? What are we talking about? The reason why I am bringing this up, because every fine you have, it'll be $500. It starts out at $500 day one.
Wow.
Day two, another $500. Day three goes to $750, and that's accumulating. 6 days in a row, you could have your MLS access revoked for 30 days. Probably got people's attention. No, I mean, this is why I'm addressing this. This is a big deal, and it's not something that will be difficult to adhere to. But if you're unaware of it and you're not making the change, because what you were doing before the policies now change, it'll be expensive if you don't figure this out. So, what this is pertaining is dealing with listings that you've been marketing or may have been marketing not across the MLS. Okay? There's a form that's called an MLS exclusion form that exists right now. It used to be a notice of exclusive office listing. And what people would do is they would take a listing, and let's say that your client is not ready to put the home on the market for 2 weeks because they need to continue to do some repairs. But you take the listing today and you sign this MLS exclusion form that says that your client is aware of the benefits of the MLS and chooses not to have it on the MLS. Whether it be for a small window, entirely, that was a choice of the client. Well, agents are doing this. Now, my opinion is agents were taking advantage of the form for their interest, because they were hoping to try to sell the home themselves so they can double end it versus give their client the best opportunity to market it to the masses and let them net more money on the sale versus the actual agent. It's not always the case. If the client truly did say, hey, I am not going to be ready to put this on the market for 2 weeks, and because I'm doing X, Y, and Z to the house, okay, great. We don't want to have photos done yet because it's not going to be ready, but we want to take the listing today. Great. You could put a sign in the yard. You used to be able to do that, but it would not be on the MLS for that 2 week time frame. That is now what is changing. The reason for it, and this is not a local MLS Utah Salt Lake issue. This is an NAR policy change. This is a change that is affecting every state in the country. Okay? So that's why I said it's a big deal. What it means is if you do any public marketing, period, it has to be put on the MLS within 1 business day after you publicly market. So, let me use the old way, the old example. Today I take the listing, but it wasn't going to be ready to put on the MLS for 2 weeks. Okay? And in that 2 week time frame, I do no public marketing. I don't put a sign in the yard. I don't do any social media. I don't send out any emails. No flyers, email, whatever. I don't do any marketing for 2 weeks. If I do that, then that MLS exclusion form, the process has not changed at all. Was that unclear? Meaning, if I do none of this marketing, the process has not changed. I can have the MLS exclusion form signed, and then 2 weeks from now, great. It goes on the MLS, and nothing's happened. The problem with it is this. An MLS exclusion form, when you put it, 2 weeks later when you put it on the MLS, you have to put that when your effective date of the contract was, which was today. If I'm signing it saying the listing is going to be effective today, then, and I wait 2 weeks, my effective date would be today. So day 1 on the MLS would be day 14, wouldn't it? You see that as a problem for your clients? Yes. So let me give you better options. Okay? If it were me, and what I have been doing, where I have a client, let's just say that, hey, they got 1 or 2 things they need to get done. They're not going to be able to put on we don't want to get photos done until next week. And we want next Thursday to be the day 1 to hit on the market. Well, if you guys were unaware, we have our own contracts. If you're using the contracts on the MLS, stop. We have our own contracts. This is one of the advantages of using our contract. Our contract has an effective date. It says this contract starts and ends. So I can sign the contract today. I'm taking the listing today. I don't know what today's date is. 29? So 1/29. But the effective date that I put in the contract is February 15th. Or next week. Okay? February 15th. And then I do 6 months out from February 15th. Even though I'm signing the contract today. So my question, when is my listing effective?
15th.
February 15th. Can I put a sign in the yard today?
No.
Can I advertise today?
No.
No, because I don't have a listing. Forget the MLS policy right now. Now we're just talking about the division rules. I don't have a listing until the 15th. So I cannot market, period. Because I'm not the listing agent until the 15th.
So does that mean your seller can cancel on the 14th?
Well, couldn't they cancel? You have a contract.
That's what I'm.
No, that would be a question that just because I have a contract that is effective the 15th or whatever. So there's nothing. Can they cancel? It'd be no different. Now the argument would be, could they take a listing with another brokerage for 2 weeks?
Yes.
The answer would be yes. Because someone else could come and take the list, could list the property tomorrow. Now we got solutions to this. They could take a listing for tomorrow, but they got 2 weeks of a chance to make that happen. So is that a risk? Sure, I guess it's a risk. But now they don't have it sold in 2 weeks. Their listing's gone because you now have a listing that would supersede that. There is another option. Okay? Option 2 is, and I would take this option. I'm generally not worried about that, but let's just say it was 3 weeks. Okay? A longer period of time. Usually when it's a week, I'm not concerned about it. And we're talking through and it's not going to be an issue. But let's just say it was 3 weeks or a month. Okay? Same thing. They're doing repairs. They're finishing the basement. Whatever it is, it's going to take 2 to 3 months. Well, you now can take the listing today and you put it active today and immediately move it to off-market status. Okay, there's an off-market status. Now what this means is you have an active listing. So first off, the one thing I would do, instead of taking a 6-month listing, if they're going to take a month or 2, I'd take a 7 or 8 month listing. That's the first thing I would make sure I do. So my listing, the effective date would be today, and if it's going to take them a month to get it fixed, I want 7 months because I want 6 months of being able to market that property. And I got a 7-month listing. So immediately, but then they're going to say, hey, we want to move it to off-market until you get further notice. Once it is in off-market status, the ability to publicly market that property is the exact same as the MLS exclusion, except one factor. You can have a sign in the yard. And this is the reason, this is the difference. You have an active listing. It is active. but it is off market where it's not supposed to be shown. And now this goes into a code of ethics things where you have an obligation to truth in advertising, advertise what is being represented. If there's a reason why it's off market, the way it was commonly used was this. Let's say I've had a listing on the market for 2 months, and my client, their entire family just got the flu, sick. They do not want to show the house. They're sick for a week. Okay? Well, I move it to off-market status right there, which notifies the public, hey, that home's not available to show, right? But I still have a listing. Is the MLS expecting me to go and take my sign down in the yard? No. They're taking it off the market for a week because they're sick, whatever. That was the purpose of it. So that's where this little bump. The other advantage of the off market versus a notice of exclusive, days on market stop. They're put on hold. So in that off market option, I have to move it to active to get it to off market first. So active, and immediately I put it to off market. It's day one. So now 2 weeks later, when I remove the off market status, that now is in essence day one or day two. I don't know if it's how it would reflect. But those 14 days that it had been off market, they were on hold. It was not impacting your days on market, which your notice of exclusive listing, you would have to put it when you took the listing. And so once you remove that status, your days on market would immediately go to 14, 21, a month, 30 days, however long you were off. Okay?
And the off-market gives you a cushion on, so let's say that you are waiting on pictures because you got to paint or something like that, but we've only got 3 days to upload pictures or more. But so that off-market status also puts a hold
All
on
of that exactly.
All of that. So you can have a blank listing except for the description, and you're
correct.
Okay.
Well, you're gonna have to. You used to put your data input.
Yeah,
you're gonna put all that stuff.
Right.
But yes, your photo uploads. That's a great question. The time frame to upload the photos, that part is on hold. You're not being impacted by that as well. Now remember, when it's in an off-market status, it's not being pushed out to the IDX feeds either. So you're not. That's the reason why it's not getting the public marketing, even though you do have an active listing. So that's the same thing. You cannot go onto social media, hey, check out my listing that's going to be available in a week. You cannot do that. The whole purpose of this, a lot of people were doing coming soon listings, not for the advantage of the consumer, it was to benefit the agent. In addition to this whole purpose of cooperation, what is being offered, this is the purpose of the whole policy, is to impact across the country, is to make sure that we're cooperating with the other brokerages and treating this the way it's supposed to be treated.
Question is there a certain amount of time, like if you don't want to go off market, but you just put in the remarks, seller requests no showings till Saturday because they're fixing things?
Okay.
Can you keep it inactive, and is there an amount of time like that happens?
So this ends up being kind of that gray area. There isn't a time frame, hey, if it's 3 days, you can do it. If it's 4 days, you can't. There isn't a time frame, but it goes back to the same thing on the code of ethics, is are you true representation of what's being done? I have asked this question because we were wondering if it needed to be moved into off-market status. So let's say it was Monday or Tuesday. I put a listing on the MLS and they say the seller's requested no showings until Saturday when they do through the open house. So now you got 2, 3, 4 days where the showing has not occurred. I've been told that is okay, but now if it were a week, 2 weeks, you're pushing the envelope. That 3-day window seems to be that it'll be okay, but like I said, the one thing with anything else, if everyone starts doing that, I'm sure it'll be a problem, and they won't allow it to happen.
On the question and answer on that one, they said 5 business days for that, so they are given the leeway of 5.
So okay, so I haven't heard. That's the first I've heard it. So, but
5 days.
They do. This is a webinar, by the way, that is available on MLS. It's a 45-minute webinar that they're talking to the CEO of the MLS, Brad Belke, and he's addressing a lot of these things, kind of going through. It would be very wise for you to go back and listen to it.
At the bottom, there's a frequently asked questions, so you don't have to listen to all 45 minutes. Even if you just read the frequently asked questions, they go through every single one of them, and that enough. Like, just click on the link, and at the very bottom of the page, it says frequently asked questions. Just read those, and it will answer those.
The one thing they say on their webinar is say, look, it's possible things could change throughout this next year because how people react to these things. So if the reaction is positive and the actions are positive, the response to be positive. But if there's a lot of negative or people trying to find new ways of doing stuff, they're going to probably make changes on that arena as well. So, like I said, this rolls out February. It's really February 2nd, since that's a Monday. If you make sure you understand this, it really shouldn't impact much of what you're doing. The policy where you have 5 business days to get it on the MLS, that's an MLS policy, our local MLS policy. That still is the same. So if you're not doing public marketing in that 5-day window, so meaning I take a listing today. What's today? Is it Wednesday? I take a listing today, get it signed. That's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I think it's 5 business days, so it's still Monday, Tuesday next week. So if I'm not going to do any public marketing, if I took a listing today, no sign in the yard, then by the 5th business day, I could put it on the MLS all at once and still be in compliant according to the MLS policy because I didn't do any public marketing. But if I took the listing today and I had to sign up tomorrow, then I have 1 business day after that public marketing that I've got to be on the MLS up and running. And then the days would apply because I got the 3 or within the 10, I forgot what it is, 3 or 10 business days, whatever, to get it up on the MLS.
Right.
So
if you take it off market though, MLS is going to expect you to be complete with a complete listing on it the minute you take it.
Absolutely.
So,
you need to be on.
Just be prepared if you actually do strategy number 2, which actually sounds like it would work quite nicely.
So just the confusion that was coming from it, and because we were trying to find out, is if it's off market, can I do all kinds of public marketing even though it's not? No, the answer, you got to sign in the yard. The purpose of this is because we're not trying to hide listings from our clients. Okay? Now, as of right now, this is not impacting new construction. So, typically new construction, they have 1 model home, but they're selling a bunch of lots or properties that are not even built yet. If they've got 3 or 4 properties that are built, then they should, I think it will impact them. But if they're just selling homes to be built, this would not apply with them. But that model home may have to be on the MLS, but everything else wouldn't. Okay? Any questions about this?
So, it gets me thinking about social media because I advertise on KSL. Obviously, I won't put it on KSL until it's on the MLS. What if it goes under contract? Do I need to go back to KSL and put under contract or pull it off KSL? Are we going to
Like
get
anything
deemed
else,
that?
I mean, you got to.
Right.
You got to. If you're taking those added steps, yes, you would have to make that change regardless.
Or if it expires for some reason, you better get it off KSL.
Yeah, I would say yes, because you're in control of that KSL listing.
Right. Or
And-
Facebook or whatever.
Absolutely true, and do
So
accurate
on
marketing.
Facebook, you post it on Facebook, and then
Now,
it
if it's an
sells-
old post,
Okay.
6 months later, I mean,
Okay.
in my opinion, that's an old post.
Okay.
That's not an active post that is running through it. You're not showing active again today.
Right.
You're just saying, hey, you're
was.
scrolling through your 3-6 months worth of Facebook posts, and they look at an old post where it said, I don't think
I
that's.
just wonder
promoting it.
I
Yeah.
wonder how crazy they're gonna.
Yeah, no, that's not the promotion I would say.
So what if, on KSL, because I pull ads from KSL, what if there's an old home that has been up there for like 22 days, it's been sold, but we haven't taken it off, are we liable for that too?
Yeah, that's my question.
So it's an old post, You haven't put anything new
Yeah,
to
there's
update
nothing
the
new,
status?
Yeah, so it's kind of like Facebook in a way, because it's been there
Yeah, it's old.
for like 20, 30 days.
Yeah.
So,
That
so
is
we're not
old.
advertising. again.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't think they have anything that is going to specify it, but the argument would be is this. Do you have responsibility for your marketing?
Yes.
This would be my take.
Yeah.
So, yes, the KSL versus Facebook. Facebook isn't, that 3 or 4 10-day-old post, that's not live time, or what's it called, real time. That's not real time.
People aren't searching for it.
If I go up to KSL and I pull up that KSL listing, even though it's been on for 22 days, it's still reflecting active, then I would say yes, you do have an obligation to move that. So change the status on that one, and you're going to update it. But that Facebook post, that's not a live status. That was the post 22 days ago that at that moment. I guess is the difference. Okay. That's what I would call. Okay?
We'll see.
We'll find out. But
We'll find out when we get that 5.
any other questions about this? Okay, there's a couple of other things I want to make sure, and then hopefully we'll blast through these others because I want to leave some for some questions that we can go through. So, for those of you that are unaware, that's kind of blurry, isn't it?
I thought it was just my eyes.
Yeah.
That was my eyes too. I
Put my eyes on it, cleared up, so.
Well, I wish I knew how to.
It's up with that.
Yeah.
Zen.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right. Anyway, the purpose is focusing on this for some of you that have drafted like 4 or 5 of these and have still never read the contract. We're bringing this to you, or whatever. Okay. What? I've done 10 of them. What are you talking about? Trust me, it happens. Okay. I want to make sure that you guys are aware of what Section 8.3b talks about, because I see it all the time where great agents where they represent a buyer and they put $0 in this field. And that's fine if you represent a buyer. Maybe. But if you're representing a seller and you accept an offer that has 0 in here, that tells me you haven't read this contract. Because if you're representing a seller, there should be no reason why you should accept an offer that has 0 or this is left blank. Okay? So, what this paragraph is talking about. This was added a year and a half ago whenever they changed the contract. And the purpose of it was to break up the due diligence deadline and the financing deadline. Because what was transpiring is buyers were canceling contracts based on financing, but really it was based on a due diligence category. They either changed their mind or the seller is not going to fix X, Y, Z, and they've passed their due diligence deadline, but they want to cancel, so they decide to cancel based on financing. And finance, it's pretty subjective, where it says based on the sole discretion of the buyer. Sole discretion is pretty vague. So a lot of sellers thought, well, wait a minute, they qualified. We even received notification that the lenders pre-approved them or approved them. They're qualified for the loan. Well, sole discretion. Is it, if I believe that the rates are going to go down to 2% and they only went to 2.5%, is that a reason to cancel if I'm the buyer based on my sole discretion?
Yeah.
Seems like it would be pretty arguable. So this was added to give a little bit more fairness, in my opinion, to a seller. To now, if the buyer does decide to cancel based on financing and after the due diligence deadline, they've got a little skin in the game if they're representing the seller. So there's no longer defending that. However, if you leave this blank or put 0 in here, all you've done is kept the contract the exact same as the way it was before. So what I'm saying, if I represent the seller, which by the way, the other piece of this is earnest money. If you're representing a seller and you have a $500,000 property and you accept an earnest money of $1,000, what are you doing? You are not protecting your client. Earnest money is there if the parties choose to cancel or in default, whatever, their predetermined liquidated damages is really the definition of it. So if I have $1,000 earnest money and the seller's moved out of the property already, they've paid $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in moving expenses, and now the deal cancels the day before the financing deadline. The buyer gets all their money back, and the seller now has to put the home on the market, and they've already spent $3,000, and they get $1,000. Actually, in that case, they wouldn't get any. There's not a lot of earnest money, so be mindful of the amount of earnest money that's there. So, if it's a $500,000 property, on that one, I'd probably say anywhere from $500 to $7,500 is what I would want representing the seller. Okay, so if I take $5,000, $7,500, if that's the earnest money, my rule of thumb, I'm putting half of that number in here if I'm representing the seller. So if it was $5,000 earnest money, I want $2,500 here. And the offers that I'm getting, they're coming in blank. Hey, I can tell you right now, we're going to counter right off the bat. So if you want to send us a new offer that'll at least have $2,500 in there, we're telling all of our, if we're going to have multiple offers, I'm telling everyone right off the bat, I want that money there. Andrew.
How does that apply when it comes to FHA loans? If you go after due diligence, but you're in between finance and appraisal, or even after finance appraisal, it doesn't matter, right?
No. But who can answer his question?
If it doesn't appraise, then the money goes back to the buyer.
That's what it's talking about.
Okay, but if the financing, if they go and buy something at RC Willey's, the FHA addendum, they no longer qualify for financing now.
It's talking about, specifically talking about the appraisal. If the home does not appraise for the appraised value
On the FHA addendum.
on the FHA addendum, for the appraised value. And so if the buyer, remember the buyer on the FHA addendum, the buyer has the choice to even move forward. Even though it doesn't appraise, they have the option to still move forward. But it's talking about if the home does not appraise, and on the FHA addendum it even includes minus the closing costs. So meaning if it appraised, you're at $400,000 is the purchase price and paying $10,000 in closing costs, and it appraised at $390, well then that's basically the same thing, because it's taking the closing costs factor out of it. But it's talking on the appraisal, not off of financing.
So if the buyer is conventional without any additional language, if the house doesn't appraise and they don't come to terms, the buyer still loses that money?
No.
No?
So this is why it's important, because now you go to 8.2, talking about the appraisal, finance and appraisal deadline. So first off, the cancellation document gives you 3 checkboxes to choose from. The first checkbox is due diligence. Are you canceling before the due diligence? On or before? Option 1. Come on in.
I would like to. I've got another meeting. I heard checkbox.
You check checkboxes, so we got 2 signatures. For those of you who don't know, Sam Bell.
Where's a bow tie?
Where's a bow tie? He's
What I shave.
exactly. He's also our attorney. So, huh? Yeah. Anyway, so option 2 is if you're canceling after the due diligence deadline, but before the finance and appraisal deadline. That's option 2. And option 3 is other. Okay? So if I cancel based on financing, and there's $2,500 in here, my client is going to lose $2,500. But you're thinking, wait a minute, you're checking box 2. If you check box 2, that's a finance and appraisal deadline. So how do you tell the difference? The difference is what else you provide. In the appraisal, if you're canceling based on appraisal, buyer's right to cancel, blah, 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 buyers receives written notice, blah, 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 has praised for less than the purchase price, and those praised about. Buyer may cancel the REPC by providing written notice to the seller with, this is the part, with a copy of the notice of appraised value. So, I'm canceling based on the appraisal. I hit box 2, I check the box, and I send a copy of the notice of appraised value, which can either be the page that says the price, whole appraisal, whatever you do. Anything that says the price of that appraisal. You attach that with your cancellation. You've now canceled based on appraisal, of which, no later than whereupon the earnest money deposit shall be released to the buyer without requirement of further written authorization from the seller. You've now saved your client the $2,500 because they cancel based on appraisal, not based on financing. Sounds fair, right?
Right.
That's the purpose of this. So, if you're the buyer versus seller, depends on the difference. Now, people told me, well, if you represent the buyer, you're always going to want to put 0 there. And I say, that depends. I had an offer that just got accepted 2.5 weeks ago. Client loves the house, loved the house. We knew that it was going to be a multiple offer situation. Turns out there were 17 offers that were put on the property. So, I told my client, hey, do you want the house or do you want to just make a decent offer, or an offer? Well, I want the house. Okay, well, first off, we're going to do a above average earnest money. So it was a mid-4s purchase price. We did $6,000 earnest money. And I put $3,000 in here. You're thinking, well, Rob, you represent the buyer. Your client's going to lose the earnest money. Well, maybe. But is my client more serious than every other buyer?
Yep.
Does it show that they are more inclined? Is that going to benefit the seller to have that offer? Now, if my client buys the house, did it cause any harm to my buyer? No. But I told my client, hey, I promise you, I bet 2/3 of the other offers are going to have 0 here. So already, we're 2/3 better than the rest because of the things that we've done. Now, we did, we talked about what the best way to approach it. Bottom line, out of 16 offers, we got the offer. And I did not change our offer at all from the very beginning. They came back 3 different times. They're going multiple offers. Do you want to change your offer? Nope. Because we submitted our offer, the best offer that my client was willing to do. And here's a little test if you want to find out what your client's best offer is. This is what I asked my client. Okay, what's your best offer? Let's just say it's $400. Okay. So, if somebody else offered $400,500, and you needed to offer $401,000 to get the offer, would you do that? Well, yeah, if that's all I have to do, yes, I would do that. Okay, well then $400,000 is not your best offer. Because somewhere there's going to be a number that you will not, I don't care, you can't afford it, whatever it is, you will not go above that number. That's your best offer, because if someone else offers $10, $50, $100 more, you wouldn't pay it. That's your client's best offer. So, the other benefit to them, because they wanted this house. I just don't want to lose that. Okay, well let me ask you a question. Are there other homes in the valley that are way out of your price point? $750,000, $1 million that we're not even looking at. Are there other homes out of your price point? Well, yeah. Like, okay. Well, if you put your best offer and someone pays $500 more than yours, isn't that out of your price range? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, stop thinking about that stuff, because hey, hey, there's a beautiful $6 million home. I'm happy to show it to you if you want to buy it. But it's the same principle, right? So that was calming for them. Like, okay, this is our best offer. Doesn't matter if they want us to change it. We're good about it. Turns out it was the best offer for them. But that's a way that you guys can prepare your buyers better, so it's if they get the offer, great. If they don't, then it's okay too.
How do you feel about escalation clause addendums?
I actually had an escalation on this one. I'm not a fan of them, but I knew that it would require it, and it was one thing that we did. But if you're going to use an escalation clause, unless you know what you're doing, please come and see me.
So
Because-
I've had an agent say, no, we will not look at those because they don't know
That's
what
possible.
they're doing with them.
That's possible.
But that's not in their seller's best interest.
Well, it depends.
Well, like,
I don't know, but that's one thing that I've told my client, because I'm one of those, I had another client that doesn't like playing games. And in their opinion, that's a game. Give us your best offer. I don't want to deal with anyone playing a game. Okay. And so in this particular situation, I conveyed that, hey, we can take this approach, but it's possible that there are some sellers that may look at this and say, I don't want to do that.
Well,
I don't want to even entertain those offers.
I will ask the seller before I ever write one. Because
Okay,
the seller's
that's a-
agent, because if they're negative, their
Yeah,
seller will be.
That's a good approach. I think that's a good approach. But if you're going to write one, please come and see me, because I promise you, if you make a mistake, it's going to cost you and your client. And there's things that we need to include in order to make that happen.
Question on this one here. So you're representing the seller and you're going to counter it. Do you have verbiage that's shorter than just copying that in your? Do you have something you'd say that?
What am I countering? So what am I
So
countering?
they sent over an offer, I have 0 on there. I don't want to counter and put $2,500 on that. Do you have verbiage that would say what you're countering, or?
Yeah, so how I would do it is this. If I were countering it, and if Jason was the agent, first off, I'm going to explain, because my experience has been they don't even understand what this thing is talking about. So I don't want them to feel that way. Hey, Jason, as you already know about what this section says, where if you cancel after due diligence, but based on financing, then half the earnest money would go to the seller. I mean, I'm going to say it that way, like as you already know. I'm going to phrase it. We're going to counter that back. Well, my client is at least expecting $2,500 in it. So my counter would be section 8.3 BI, the blank to be $2,500 would be my counter. But now I've explained it to you because chances are you don't know what this is even talking about.
So you don't have to re-explain it. You're just saying the number.
Yep, I'm going to, because I don't have to explain it because the language is already there.
Right.
So
And by the way,
8.3 I.
the less you write, the better.
Right.
You guys are not attorneys. Sam was the attorney. Plus, I'm not that smart. I don't know how to write. I'm not that good. So why should I recreate the will? I'm going to try to keep things as simple as possible. It's plain English, clear. I get people who are like writing novels, and I'm like, first off, it just doesn't make sense. So anyway, does that make sense? I'm going to take 2 seconds on this one because we're here, because I'm seeing this as well. Real quick, if you represent the seller, the seller's disclosure deadline, the seller's disclosures, that is not the only thing that you have to disclose, is have seller's disclosures filled out. There are 11 things that are under the seller disclosure requirement. I'm going to leave it at that. Go back and look at if you represent a seller, your seller has to provide all of these 11 things, if applicable, by the deadline. If you don't, your client's in default, and you're pretty much you screwed the pooch. It's not just seller's disclosures. Simple?
So the key thing on that, I don't know how many offers I've
The
written
PR?
with HOAs, and those agents
minutes?
don't have any idea. Oh, they don't have the minutes, they don't have the budget. I'm like, so when you take a listing for a condo, get that before you post the dang thing.
The CC&Rs, the budget, the finance. So she's bringing it up. That's why I want you to read it. If you have a listing in an HOA, you're required a copy of the most recent minutes, budget, and financial statement of, if it exists, of the homeowner. So if you receive an offer that says you've got to provide seller's disclosures within 3 days, you've never even called the title company to order the title insurance policy.
And it's possible there may be more than one HOA also.
Sure.
That's something that's missed quite a bit.
In
It's so slick.
Daybreak, there's
Daybreak.
multiple
It's
HOAs.
so slick to just add those on your listing in the documents.
Sure.
Then they're there.
There.
Well,
everybody gets them.
okay, now this.
But you still have to give them.
Okay, that's
You
what I was
still
gonna.
have
That's
to
what
give
I.
them. So
remember-
when a seller's agent says, "Oh, you can give them the MLS," So I'm like,
I know.
no, you need to still give them to me.
So this is where, what she's talking about, what Brendan's talking about. This says, no later than the seller disclosure deadline reference, blah, 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 seller shall provide to buyer. We're not attorneys, but our job is to minimize or if not eliminate any possible litigation. What Brenda Lee's talking about, if I uploaded all this information on the MLS and it was there for the buyer's agent to go and retrieve, could I make an argument that the seller did not provide that to the buyer? I haven't seen it,
No.
but if I'm an attorney, if I'm the buyer and my buyer is an attorney, and they can spend all day long in court because it's not going to cost them anything, could he make an argument? I believe he could. So my point being,
Well, the buyer-
even though you put it on the MLS,
Yeah, but the buyer doesn't have access sometimes to that.
right, but going to the buyer's agent is as if it came to the buyer. That's the same thing. My point is, even if you do that, don't put that as a default. Oh, I met the obligation. No, still send it to them that you provided it. Okay? Our job is to minimize.
I like it on there, so if a seller that's not written an offer wants to know about the CCNRs, I just like, go to the MLS, they're there.
Yeah.
So it's easy for them.
No, that's fine. You were spot on. Provide it. May not seem like a big deal, but it's still, I'm seeing this happen often. The earnest money being held at title companies, and agents are not using this. Okay, so first off, what the division and code of ethics requires you to do. You're required to use state-approved forms or forms drafted by an attorney, if available. Okay? Versus writing your own language. Agents are still writing earnest money to be held in ABC Title Company. Well, there's now an addendum, a clause, that addresses it. Problem number 2, it's not just identifying that the earnest money is going to be held in the title company, because that's going to be resolved here, if it's legible. Earnest money it's going to be modified and going to be held at ABC Title Company. But this is a very important paragraph. It says, buyer and seller are advised that the title insurance company may require, through separate written instruction, that both the buyer and seller mutually authorize disbursement of the earnest money deposit. Meaning, if somebody cancels and the earnest money could be released to the other party, the title company more than likely is going to require buyer and seller sign something authorizing that release. I've got one, just got off the phone before I came up here. Our agent represent the seller. The buyer didn't perform, and they wanted an extension, and the seller didn't want to extend, so they want their earnest money, $6,000. They said, well, the buyer is contesting it. They're not willing to release it, and it's held at a title company. I said, well, you're going to have to go to, if they're not willing to do it, your option is going to court. Take them to small claims court, because that's the remedy.
So if we got one of those, could you do an addendum back, saying in the event, buyer and seller,
Well,
can you
personally,
counteract that?
Again, if I represent the seller and I receive this in my offer, my counter, in addition to the $2,500, is earnest money to be held in seller's brokerage trust account. I'm not going to have it held in the title company. I want that control.
Very cool. Okay. Yeah.
So have it held with us,
So that's how you.
because then I don't have to worry about that. Now, they may not be okay with it, and they'll talk. At the end of the day, you got to ask your seller, hey, seller, I'm happy to counter this. If they're okay with it, it's no problem. But if they're not, if they want it held at a title company, first off, that causes me concern. What's the problem? That tells me that if they were going to cancel, they're going to put up a fight. So, but Mr. Seller, how do you want to do this? If they're unwilling to do that, I don't want to have it up. Great. Now the deal dies. Probably the better decision anyway, and you get another offer that they're willing to do that, and now it's no longer an issue. Make sense? Use the form that's there. Don't recreate the will, and don't write your own language. There are a lot of options there, so go through and find out you may not even know that a lot of this stuff exists. There's a lot of things that exist out there. and last one that I had is, this one still comes up, is where you're having, if you're negotiating commissions in the offer, when should this be done, when should it not? So, for those of you that have been in business a while, for years, you used to always hear, you can't negotiate, talk about commissions in the contract, it's an ethics violation, it was against the law. Depends. Depends on how it was written. Okay? The reason where, and you're laughing, like, what are you talking about? We're going to do a quick little diagram. I'll explain the reason. Assuming buyer and seller are both represented by brokerages that belong to the MLS. Okay? That's the assumption. So the listing broker, the seller has a listing brokerage and the buyer has a buyer's brokerage. Go with that assumption. At a bare minimum, how many contracts, how many parties exist in the contract, in that transaction?
4.
4. What are they?
Seller's
Buyer,
agent.
seller.
Okay, so we got seller, seller and listing agent, right? Buyer, buyer's agent. Okay, then what?
The brokerages.
What do you mean by that?
MLS listing, just like the relationship between the brokerage, like the MLS.
Okay, that's what I'm looking. Okay,
And then the reps in between the
okay.
clients.
Okay, there are four contracts. Listing agent, buyer broker. The rep C ties the buyer and seller together. The MLS ties our compensation together. Those 4 contracts exist on every deal. Now let's just ask a common question. Jason, if Ruby and I have a contract, and the 2 of you have a contract, and you and I decide to have a contract, can our contract impact, or can we agree about something that affects just the 2 of you?
No.
We can try, hey, if I can get Ruby to agree to it, okay, great, we'll try to change those terms. But our our contract is between us. Now it might be contingent upon theirs, but I can't agree to something that changes their terms. So what I mean by that, in what was happening in an addendum, people say BAC to be, let's just say they were offering 2.5% BAC on the MLS, and now they go BAC to be 3%. Okay, what's the BAC?
Buyer's agents.
Buyer's agent what?
The
Okay.
MLS contract.
Brokerage agency commission. That is pertaining to a contract that is down here. So buyer and seller have no ability to impact that existing agreement. That's why it was a violation of the Code of Ethics. Because the agents were getting the buyer and seller involved in talking about something that isn't their right. So if it's written the right way, where buyer and seller are still talking, now let's just go with assumptions here. Let's say it's a 3% BAC over here, and here they're offering a 3% commission is what we have a contract over here. And on the MLS, they're offering 2.5% BAC. So, now that we know that, does the buyer owe technically another 0.5%? Because your buyer broker says, you're going to pay 3% unless you can get that money from somebody else.
Yep.
Well, they get 2.5%. So technically the buyer still owes 0.5%. So, if the buyer owes 0.5%, does the buyer have the right to say, hey, Mr. Seller, I owe somebody money. In order to buy your house, I want you to pay off that debt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. So now we look at this with the language that's written, with that in mind. Seller's payment to buyer's real estate brokerage. Seller agrees to pay dollars or percentage of the purchase price to buyer's brokerage. Okay. So they're going to give buyer's brokerage money. This payment shall be made in addition to any other compensation offered by the seller's brokerage to buyer's brokerage. So by the way, if you don't understand what that just meant,
Just put 5% in there.
that's what happens.
Put 3%.
People put 3% here.
5%. Yeah.
They put 3% in that number.
Then
It's in addition, so technically the seller is now obligated to pay 5.5%. Even though your BAC, your buyer broker, is only 5% or 3%.
in addition.
So what it should be, I'll get to your second, Tim. The way it should be written here is 0.5%. That 0.5% is in addition to what you've already received. Now that's buyer asking the seller to pay their debt. Perfectly fine. And that's why it's always existed, but agents just didn't understand or couldn't do it. So fortunately, they got the language for it.
So my question is, before they had this addendum, I would do instructions.
Okay.
Because it's labeled pretty clearly in that. Is that still
Okay,
a viable option? Or?
let's go. Absolutely. In fact, that's the preferred option.
Okay.
The reason why this came about,
There's a lot of gray area.
not really a gray area, it's
Or misinterpretation from.
I'm here to tell you the best approach is still go to escrow instructions. So I go to Jason and just say, hey, you're only offering 2.5%. My client has they're going to pay 3%. Or is your client willing to up that to 3%? Yes, great. Okay, I send over an escrow instruction agreement, get it signed. Now we're good because now this agreement has been changed to 3%. So that's what's now owed. I still believe that's the best and the best approach you should do. However,
Before you write it on. Yeah.
yes, before you write an offer, get that in agreement because they may accept the offer but not accept that. Absolutely. But Tim, what if I can't ever get a hold of you as the agent?
And you want to write the offer, then you would do the addendum.
This is the reason why this was brought up. Are there some business models that exist out there that you cannot communicate with the agent?
Oh, yeah.
You try multiple, and I don't want to hear names. I don't want to hear brokerages. I just said there are business models out there. You're laughing about this, but there's a lawsuit in the NER because of this process. We are in an industry that allow multiple different models. It's fine. I don't have a problem with that. There are models that exist out there that make it very difficult to get a hold of the agent. So if I don't have the ability to get a hold of the agent, it's hard for me to get an escrow instruction agreement agreed to, right? So, but I'm going to hold my clients liable for this. So if I don't have that as an option, to me this is then the backup option that I'd have to use to do that. So that's the reason. Yes, I would take
the agent, or if you can get a hold of them or communicate with them.
Absolutely, I would take that approach first.
Okay.
That's the best approach. But when I can't, then use this.
Okay.
So thanks for bringing that up. Okay, does that make sense? Does it also make sense why it came about? Okay. We're out of time, but if people want 5 more minutes, at least some
Go ahead.
questions that
I
are
have a
out.
question. I'm just curious how many people, I mean, there's a ton of 2.5 out there. My buyer broker agreement is 3. Does anyone really go back after the buyer after
I
that
do.
half? Oh, yeah.
I do if it's
And-
below
and-
2.5.
Never.
So I'll walk through this. This is how I handle, and I just had on Saturday, I just met with a buyer. And I brought him into the office. We talked for an hour and a half, 2 hours, what it was. Went through the entire process, went through we'll bring out the buyer broker. First off, I've spent the last hour and a half with this person, not 5 minutes when I'm about to show him a house. Do you think I've created some value?
Yes.
We've answered everything. We've showed him all this other stuff. I mean, I'm doing stuff that most agents aren't doing. Now I walk into it, hey, so Brenda Lee, you're the buyer. Do you feel like that the services I'm offering are going to be exactly what you're looking for? Perfect, great. Do you feel like if I'm able to do my job and you actually find the property you're looking for, you get a great deal, and everything you're trying to accomplish, that I should get compensated for that?
Yes.
Absolutely, great. The best part about that is, as we showed you all these properties, the majority of time that compensation, as we have in our agreement, it's right here, the 3%. The majority of that time, it's paid with from the other side. You can see here, this listing's offering 3, this offering 3. But do you see this one, where it's offering 2.5? Well, in that situation, they're only offering 2.5%, and in that case, we can handle it a couple of different ways. Typically, I can reach out to the other agent and say, hey, my client has an agreement to pay the 3%. We want to find out make sure that your seller is willing to make up the difference. And a lot of times they say yes. Great. We get that down, now you don't have to worry about it. However, there are times, let's just say you find a property that is exactly what you're looking for, and heck, it might even be like for sale by owner. And it's not even on the MLS, but you're getting such a great deal, you're getting everything that you're trying to accomplish, and if you find the property, if we do that and we work together, do you think I should still get compensated? Well, absolutely, yes. Great. In that situation, if the seller's unwilling to pay the money, then the obligation would be on you. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So what I need to know is how you want to handle these situations. When we come across one of those properties, first off, I'll reach out to the agent first, and if they're willing to make the adjustment, great. But it's possible that the seller may not want to do anything. So how would you like to handle those? There's a couple ways we can do it. You're looking at a price range. Well, it looks like there's a lot of homes that meet your criteria. Would you rather not see those homes? Or do you still want to see those homes, and then you would be responsible for the additional amount?
Oh, don't ever show me anything under 3.
Okay, so if there's not a 3%, so I get your permission. They're not going to say it that way. Well, I don't want to pay, but they're going to say it. I don't want to. Okay, so if I got your permission, and I'll get this in writing, by the way, unless I hear otherwise, for now, we're only going to show you properties that are offering a 3%, unless I can get the other brokerage to identify that. Is that correct?
That's what
Great.
I'm saying.
Now they say, okay, perfect. So now I have your authorization to now talk to Jason. Hey, my client, you're unwilling to do this. I just want to make sure that you're clear. My client has advised us not to see your property unless you're willing to pay 3%. You're not going to show my property. That's a violation of the covenant of the fiduciary responsibility. Actually, it's not. I've had a conversation with my client. They've informed me exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and they've instructed. So I'm asking you, do you want your property shown? Because now I've already got the authorization. I don't care if it's 2.5%, because you already know if it's a 2.5% and that's the deal, you're going to make up the money. You're going to make up the gap. So now I'm scot-free, right?
Hey, one question on that gap. Remember the big story, we took less commission than what we had on paper, that it would be our responsibility as agents? Do you remember that? Matt did a big to-do. Is that only on
Yeah.
listings?
That's typically on the listing side, is that we haven't enforced anything like that on the buy side.
Just-
That's on the listing side.
Okay.
So that's what's there. Bottom line is this: I will never do anything that is not my fiduciary, which means I have to put my client's interest ahead of my own. But am I a nonprofit? No, I'm not. Neither are you, I hope. You're not a nonprofit. You have the right to make money on this. So the way that I handled this, is that completely unethical? Is it? No, I'm finding out what my client would like to do. Because I have an obligation, the Code of Ethics also says that I have an obligation to inform my client how compensation will work. If I just show them a property that's paying $2, $1, $1, am I working, if I don't tell them about this stuff, am I working for free? Pretty much. So when things are great, you have a great experience. Now, I'm here to tell you, it's tough to have that conversation when they call up, hey, I saw your home and I want you to show it to me. Sure, I'll be right over there and I'll show it to you. And you call on a sign and you're wanting them to sign a buyer broker and you've only spent 5 minutes with them. I don't think you're going to have much success having that conversation in that 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's other ways that you should handle your buyers. But I don't have problems with buyers. They're loyal as can be, and there's never issues. So, but I also get compensated for it. So it's never a problem because I handle that process that way. That make sense? Okay, we're done. If you have some questions, feel free to come and ask, but thank you guys.
I lost a deal on that 8.3 because I put 0.
You put 0?
And the agent said, oh, we went with someone else that guarantees my client
Are you done with the trial?
Right, you got it, yes.
It wasn't as good an offer, but my seller wanted to take it.
Right.
And how many